The views and opinions expressed by the following program and its participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Bobo 89.1 FM and DMS Broadcasting respective stations. The program participants' opinions are based upon information they consider reliable and based on their knowledge.
Shelby the Turtle here at the Cayman Turtle Center. Did you know that turtles breathe air just like people, but we can hold our breath a lot longer than our human friends, between 4 and 7 hours underwater? Come and visit me. I'm the largest turtle at the center, weighing in at 585 pounds.
Visit the Cayman Turtle Center and explore Shelby and her friends.
Green sea turtle nesting season's approaching. Here's a few tips to keeping our friends safe. Turn off, redirect, or shield any lights that can be seen from the beach. Remove obstacles and litter from the beach. No bonfires on the beach, and remain quiet and distant if you see a nesting turtle. This message from the Cayman Turtle Center.
Looking for something fun and different to do with the family? Join us at the Cayman Turtle Center for Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., enjoy a poolside barbecue, buckets of beer and daiquiri specials, and a live DJ. It's Grill and Chill Saturdays at Cayman Turtle Center.
Good morning and welcome to the Green Scene, hosted by the Cayman Turtle Conservation Education Center. My name is Geddes Hislop. I'm the curator for terrestrial exhibits and education programs at the Cayman Turtle Center. We're bringing you the second season of our talk show, The Green Scene, and we hope that you'll tune in every Saturday right here at 11 a.m. on Bobo 89.1 FM. We'll be talking about conservation, wildlife, the environment, culture, and more. In each episode, we'll explore topics related to conservation here in the Cayman Islands, talking about protecting our natural environment, preserving our culture and heritage, and of course, we're talking about sea turtles and other native Cayman wildlife. So today, I'm joined in the studio by our colleagues, Education Programs Officers Shauna McGill and Wendy Dandy. We are discussing today the conservation and the environment. That's everybody's business. So this is our topic today, and we hope you'll listen in. So let's get right into it. Morning, guys.
Hi. Morning. Morning, Geddes.
Okay, so talking about the environment, I think one of the reasons we want to bring up this topic because I think a lot of people appreciate that they need to do something about environmental protection. And yes, it's nice to have an environment and everything's green and blue and whatever. But do they really understand what that breaks down to? What do you hope to do in today's show is kind of quantify and give them a little more detail on what's protecting the environment and conservation actually means. Conservation and preservation. In our education programs that we operate at the Turtle Centers and Animal Talks, sometimes that comes up. People sometimes tend to mix up the two definitions, I guess. Conservation versus preservation. They both want to achieve the same thing, which is maintain something, keep something going. But it's two different methods. Preservation means keep it exactly as it is. Put it in a glass box, lock it away. Mm-hmm. Don't touch it, don't breathe in it, don't look at it. While conservation means use your resource in a wise and sustainable way. And the thing about preservation is that preservation is like what museums do, and everything in a museum is dead. It sits in a glass case, it stays like that forever. Conservation says that, the world is getting smaller, figuratively speaking. There's human influence everywhere. Not all of it is good. We have to try and keep things going in some way. Okay, so we come up with different methods of doing that. And I guess a little later on we'll talk about what we do at the Turtle Center for conservation. But yeah, I just want to make sure people understand that there's a difference between conservation and preservation. Conservation doesn't mean you're not going to touch it. It means you're going to do something with it, and especially in today's world where you have plastics at the top of Mount Everest, at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, in the Antarctic Ocean, some of the most remote places on the planet. Humans have some effects. Okay? So the most we can do, in most cases, I guess, is try and mitigate that effect, and that's what conservation is. Now that we got that out of the way, how about the environment? When most people think about the environment, they usually think about green spaces, maybe the sea. Mm-hmm. There's a definition of the environment as the sum total of all living and non-living elements, and one of their effects that influence and their effects that influence human life. That includes biotic and abiotic.
And includes us. Yes. Yeah.
I think sometimes there's the environment over there, mm-hmm. and we're over here.
Yeah.
And we're not part of it. Yeah, we're part of it. Because
yeah.
we live on a planet with a lot of other things that keep us that keep us alive besides air conditioning.
Yeah. And an environment is basically where abiotic and biotic things interact with one another. So biotic are living things, abiotic non-living things, and humans are living things, and we interact with a lot of non-living things on a daily basis, like cars, buildings, rocks, sand, mm-hmm. if we go to the beach. So we are part of an environment.
Yeah. And in a balanced ecosystem environment, everything plays its part. Mm-hmm. Everything contributes to it. even ants. Because
Especially ants.
Especially ants. Yeah, think about it. If you drop a sandwich, you come back 2 days later, there's no sandwich because the ants are there. And I guess to a point, even mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes do play a role there.
Yes, they are annoying, but their larvae are basis of the food chain in most of our wetland ecosystems here in the Cayman Islands, especially. So yeah, we have a lot of mosquitoes, but
They're an important part of the food web.
they are part of the food web. And if you like fishing, or fishing, yeah, in a sense, you gotta like mosquitoes because that's what your fish feed on when they're little fry. To get up to the size that end up on your line. One of the things that you'll hear me quote a lot from a certain document, a book called The Nature of Nature by Dr. Enric Sala. He is a National Geographic explorer in-house. I think that's the title they gave him. I don't know what that means, but he's a National Geographic explorer, and he wrote this book called The Nature of Nature. And I would recommend anybody that's thinking about learning stuff about the environment. It's an easy to read book. He breaks down things very, very well. And it opened my eyes a lot. I mean, I thought I knew stuff. I learned a lot from reading that book. Anyway, I'm talking a lot. So anything else you can add with the environment?
All right, well, with the environment, as you were saying, conservation is very important, right? But there are a lot of different ways we can do conservation. It's not just as in Turtle Center how we conserve our turtles. It falls under a lot of branches: education, regulation, preservation. There's quite a few different ways. So regulation as in laws, marine parks and such. Education with letting people know what's threatened, its importance to why we need it around and how it's helped us sustain our ecosystem. And preservation, as you said, some things need to be preserved.
Yeah, some things need to try and stay as they are.
Yeah, and one of my favorite quotes is actually, we will conserve only what we love, we'll love only what we understand, and we'll understand only what we're taught. And thankfully here in Cayman, we do have a lot of conservation organizations that have either been around for a really long time or are just starting to emerge as we look at this forecast of what the planet's going to look like in the next few years and the work that we need to do to try to conserve it for the animals that live in it, all the plants as well, and also us, ourselves.
Yeah, because think about it, it'd be a lonely place if we were the only animals alive on this.
Very lonely.
Yeah, one of the things
Very uninteresting.
Would we survive is the question.
Yeah, would we survive? That's a
Absolutely
good point.
not. I mean, we depend on bees.
Yes.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah.
Humans are not sustainable enough to sustain ourselves.
Yeah, and again, like you said, some people think that it's the environment is over there and we're over here, but it impacts us even as we drive around in our air-conditioned cars. Like the ocean, for example. At our Shark Talks, we talk about the amount of oxygen produced in the ocean.
Yeah, over half the oxygen we breathe comes from our oceans.
Yeah, so keeping our oceans healthy is extremely important to our health, and especially on small islands like here. See the impact of climate change on oceans, particularly in the South Pacific. They're low-lying islands like we are. And see, old saying, if your neighbor's bed is on fire, wet your neighbor's house is on fire, wet yours. If what's happening over there can easily happen to us here.
Even just looking here visually, you can see it through the beach erosion that's going on across the island as well. So it is very obvious, and the increase of storms popping up as well during hurricane season too.
Yeah, there's so many levels, even at a microscopic level, that you're not realizing that makes a big effect, because ocean acidification is a big deal as well. The chemistry of the ocean, slightest change, it's a big volume of water. And people, if you don't see it on a bigger scale, like acidifying a conch shell of something of that size, out of sight, out of mind. But you have to think about all these planktonic animals, and when they're at those larvae phases, a lot of different species have several phases, they are developing a shell during those phases. So those shells are a lot more thin and susceptible to the acidic changes in the water, which are affecting a lot of species.
Oh, that's a good point. Because people tend to think on a macroscopic level. They're worried about lions and giraffes and rhinos going extinct, but they're not thinking about what happens to the plankton. Just like the mosquitoes, if we didn't have mosquito larvae, we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, even the ones or I would easily say those at the bottom of the food chain are some of the most important ones, because they keep the whole food chain running. Without them, nothing else can really exist.
Plankton blooms, algal blooms.
Yeah. Oh. But getting back to this, just so people know, there are a bunch of organizations on the island that are concerned with conservation. Some of the better known ones, well, of course, Cayman Turtle Center.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. We'll talk about that maybe in more
Decades
detail.
of conservation under our belt.
Yeah, but I think, Shauna, you had brought up one or two of them. Do you have a little more information on what they are?
Yeah, so I have a little information on what each group does. So there's Department of Environment, which is sort of important or is in charge of the responsibility or management and sustainable use of our natural environment. Then we have the Ministry of Sustainability. I do not want to butcher their name. It's very long.
It's the Ministry of, it's a new ministry, actually. You did say, when you mentioned before, that Cayman is coming up with a lot more new conservation organizations as well. So that's really impressive. It's the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency.
There we go. And then a couple talks ago, we had Miss Kathy Childs from the National Trust, and they're in charge of preserving our history and biodiversity here in the Cayman Islands. Then Plastic Free Cayman, which is relatively new as well, trying to combat the plastic pollution issue we have going on land, but also especially in our oceans since we are surrounded in it. So their whole aim is to educate and raise awareness about this plastic pollution that's going on, which sort of ties into us with the species that we work with, because they're heavily susceptible to marine pollution as well. And then the mangrove rangers too, who do environmental education and consulting to help protect the vital ecosystems of the Cayman Islands.
Yeah. Well, that's just a few of them. I'm sure there might be one or two more.
Quite a few more.
Yeah, we want to give them a shout out and acknowledge the work that they're doing, because I think one thing we want to get across to people that sometimes when they think about the crises that are going on environmentally, it's kind of overwhelming. It can probably paralyze you a little bit, but we're just here to say that every little thing you do helps. It can make a difference. Just like one ant. One ant by itself doesn't sound like a lot, but you got a whole bunch of them. So everybody's doing their little bit. It does count.
I also think we tend to look at conservation as it's more of the role of these conservation organizations to do their part and help us preserve our environment. But conservation as a whole is really dependent on all of us, whether that's all the other animals that live here, also us as humans. So we all play a huge role in conservation.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I think that kind of set the tone. So we know that there is conservation movement here in Cayman Islands. We know that the environment is really important to us. We're going to be discussing this a little bit more. So what we're going to do now is take a quick break, and we're going to come back and continue. So guys, we're talking about the conservation and the environment is everybody's business here in the Cayman Islands and worldwide. So we're right here in the Green Scene on Bob 89.1 FM. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Shelby the Turtle here at the Cayman Turtle Center. Did you know that turtles breathe air just like people, but we can hold our breath a lot longer than our human friends, between 4 and 7 hours underwater? Come and visit me. I'm the largest turtle at the center, weighing in at 585 pounds.
Visit the Cayman Turtle Center and explore Shelby and her friends.
Green sea turtle nesting season's approaching. Here's a few tips to keeping our friends safe. Turn off, redirect, or shield any lights that can be seen from the beach. Remove obstacles and litter from the beach. No bonfires on the beach, and remain quiet and distant if you see a nesting turtle. This message from the Cayman Turtle Center.
Looking for something fun and different to do with the family? Join us at the Cayman Turtle Center for Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., enjoy a poolside barbecue, buckets of beer and daiquiri specials, and a live DJ. It's Grill and Chill Saturdays at Cayman Turtle Center.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Green Scene. My name is Geddes Sislop. I am here with my colleagues, Shauna McGill and Wendy Dandy. And if you're just joining us, we are talking about conservation and environment. It's everybody's business. In the earlier section, we talked a little bit about conservation, what conservation and preservation means, what the environment means for us. And we mentioned some of the organizations in Cayman that are concerned with conservation, like the Turtle Center, Department of Environment, Ministry of Sustainability, and so on. But, what we wanted to point out is that although these organizations their mandate is to do conservation, it doesn't necessarily have to leave it to them. Conservation is basically everybody's business. Right, Shauna?
Yeah, conservation is definitely everybody's business. And I feel like when we say that, people get a little bit scared because us as humans, that sort of involves changing habits. And we're not the best at changing our ingrown habits, I'll be honest. But it doesn't have to be big things that you have to do for conservation. I was saying earlier how everybody should be doing it. It's everybody's business, and there are very easy ways you can do it. So for us at Cayman Turtle Center, we obviously work with the sea turtles, with the green sea turtles, and they, in the wild, are very susceptible to marine pollution. Whether that's them accidentally feasting on a plastic bag, thinking it's jellyfish, which I personally joke are like candy to them. They love jellyfish. But also whether they're just grazing on algae and seagrass beds and accidentally ingest these microplastics. It really affects them, and quite negatively. It can make them sick, and it can even kill them in extreme circumstances. So one of the programs we like to share and educate with the public is just our 3 Pieces initiative. So this is when we ask people to try to pick up at least 3 pieces of trash or plastic a day. Now, that doesn't have to be big pieces. It could just be little bottle caps, little tiny pieces of plastic. But if you start instilling that behavior every single day, you're going to keep it with you for life. And you're going to have a profound effect on the environment. If one person picks up 3 pieces of trash a day, that's over 1,000 pieces in a year. So just imagine if the whole world did that. But very more importantly, if we all started having that habit, the impact we could have.
I mean, there's lots of simple things you can do at home. In my house, for example, we recycle plastics, but there's other little things you can do. For example, well, CUC talks about this a lot. Turn off your lights. If you're not using it, if you walk out of a room and you're not going to go back in there right away, just turn off the light. It saves electricity. Turn down your AC just 1 or 2 degrees. It doesn't sound like much, but that's a lot less energy being used. And I think that you have to understand that the energy at the other end is where the problem is, because right now they use diesel generators, and diesel, anybody's being stuck behind a truck knows what comes out of the exhaust when you use a diesel engine. Okay, so the more electricity is being burned, the more diesel is being used, and the more stuff going up into the air. And as Wendy pointed out earlier, ocean acidification, the pollution in the atmosphere is what's being washed into the ocean that's causing that acidity, that's raising the acidity of the ocean. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's not a good thing.
Carbon sink, but it's overloaded.
Yeah, it is overloaded. Yeah, the ocean is the biggest carbon sink. And I guess we should define what that is too. Carbon sink. Okay, carbon dioxide. Everybody knows that carbon dioxide is not a good thing. Well, it's not a good thing in the sense that we breathe it out. Okay, plants love it. Most living animals don't. But I can't think of anything that breathes carbon dioxide. Yeah, the thing is, more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it's floating around up there. It gets into our rainfall. To put it very simply, it gets into our rainfall. So clouds that form, those droplets absorb carbon dioxide, and you get carbonic acid. And carbonic acid falls in the rain. And I'm sure if any of you have been in some areas of North America, like for example, from my experience, is an area called Sudbury in Ontario, Canada. Sudbury is a victim of acid rain because they have no lawns, no trees, very little vegetation, because the rain there is so acidic it kills everything.
Oh wow!
Statues begin to melt over a period of time. Just from that acid rain. That's an extreme example, but this is the kind of thing we're trying to avoid by doing something as simple as turning off lights. And brushing your teeth, for example. Who brushes their teeth and leaves the water running full blast? Or take a shower while you're soaping yourself, the water's running full blast.
Or the dishes.
You really need to turn on full blast to wash 1 cup or a fork. So like Shauna said earlier, it doesn't have to be a big deal.
Yeah, and Shauna mentioned earlier too about single-use plastics, picking up 3 a day, reusing and recycling as well. So reducing the amount of stuff you consume has the greatest benefits for the planet, right? It's best to avoid waste in the first place. So think more carefully about the purchases you make. There are some great companies in Cayman. Our initiatives of going greener is exceptional. There's companies like the juice company Green to Go. I'm sorry, I keep straying away from the mic. There's companies like the juice company Green to Go, a CMOS company, Pure Vitality. When you purchase from them, and you return the bottles that it came in, you get a discount. So things like that. Reusing items saves on natural resources and energy needed to manufacture new ones. And also it saves money. So reusing as much as possible. Shopping locally as well. That's another thing. Shopping locally, and organically. So buying fresh organic food from the farmers market. That's the way to support our local farmers, and also reduce the carbon footprint of shipping and packaging, and also support the nature with your food choices. What other ways? In your garden as well? Our green spaces, cutting down on herbicides and pesticides, because these kill a lot of pollinators, right? Butterflies and moths, a lot of pollinating insects such as ladybirds, beetles, and spiders. And beetles and spiders actually eat the insects we're trying to get rid of, like little lice and little small bugs that are actual pests that we're getting rid of. And stat actually is 3/4 of the butterflies in the UK actually have declined in the last 40 years due to pesticides.
Oh, wow.
So there's also natural remedies. Google or Pinterest, you can find a lot of them. All Caribbean one is neem, the neem tree, neem oil.
Yeah.
Grounding at neem. I've also heard, our grandparents talk about garlic.
Yes, I think that repels vampires too.
Yes. You keep it vampire free and pest free. There you go. Get everything covered.
I just want to jump off of that and say, if you're a gardener, if you like gardening, if you're building a whole new lawn for a house you just bought or a property you got, try to use local or especially even endemic plant species as well, because those are what our biodiversity thrives off of. So ensure you try to do that instead of exotic species that might not survive in our climate, and also depending on the rainfall certain years as well.
Things to attract bees.
Butterflies as well. I'm sure Geddes can name a few plants that are very important for butterflies.
Milkweed.
Oh yeah, it makes sense. In the last episode, a couple episodes ago, we had Miss Kathy Childs from the National Trust here when we were talking about mangroves, and she pointed out that out. When we're clearing our land, people love to clear land in Cayman. They just mow down everything and then replant it. That's a lot of work. When we have these native trees that are there, they're already providing shade, they're already stabilizing the soil, helping. Why not just build around them? And again, like you said, they're providing food and an environment for wildlife, native wildlife. They're already evolved to work with these plants. Yeah, there's so much that we can do.
Yeah. Let's see. I think we should just try and name as much as possible out there. Just get people's ideas, thinking with saving water, hanging up clothes to dry instead.
Yeah, using
also shopping for the ladies out there.
Shopping.
Yeah. So thrifting. Donating clothes and using donated clothes is a big help. The fashion industry is a huge contributor to pollution and global warming as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wouldn't even think about that.
Statistics say at least 100 billion pieces of garment are produced every year, and 92 million tons of that clothing ends up in the landfill.
Wow.
Right? And for the fibers used to make materials, at least 47% of that ends up waste.
Oh,
so
yes.
thrifting is a huge way to cut back. For every vacation, we don't need to buy something new. I had to break myself out of that as well. Not casting any stones. You know what I mean? You don't have to buy something new for every vacation. Donate your clothes. Don't throw them away. There are good thrift stores that actually dry clean the clothes and they're in mint condition. So that is also another big suggestion I would put out there.
Yeah, I will personally say one of my favorite activities to do with my best friend is go thrifting. And I do make it a point of, if I have any old clothes, I try to donate them as much as possible to these different thrift stores on island if they are accepting them. Because not only is that better for the environment, but it's really good for the community in Cayman as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because environmental conservation and protecting the environment not only benefits the environment, it also there's a feedback to us. Because like you said, it's something as simple as thrifting, which is something I never thought of. I'm a guy, but that's really interesting. And in that sense, when you go back to the old time, to what they call the good old days, in the early days, certainly in the Cayman and other Caribbean islands, people had to learn to work with their environment to survive. Composting is all of a sudden a rage. Well, not all of a sudden, it's been a rage for a few years, but they were doing it before that. People were doing that before that. Because I remember growing up, there was a pile of leaves way in the backyard where you just put everything. And that was where you got your compost. You just pull out everything from the bottom, and then everything else will just slowly settle down.
It's really hot and warm here. It's the perfect environment to try to do composting. And we are a little bit behind on the composting fad that's going on, because when I lived in the UK, composting is a very common thing up there, especially in Scotland.
Yeah. So simple things like bananas. If you got banana peels, use your banana peels. Eggshells. Leftover
bread.
Greens. Coffee grounds, which is important to me. Coffee grounds. Yes, there's so many ways you can use these things instead of just tossing them out.
Yeah, reusing them as well. Banana peels, sorry, just had a random thought. Boiling it for tea is actually a really good source of antioxidants, and also rubbing when the peel is brown, or rubbing it against your teeth actually whitens it. And that is true. I've done that. I used to do that in university. It was more broke days. I couldn't afford whitening as I can today in a career. So it does work. So things like methods like that as well.
And I'll jump off the coffee grounds. I am a coffee drinker. I very much rely on my coffee in the morning. But if you go out, if you're not someone that makes your coffee at home, sometimes we're running a little bit late. We just want to pick it up and go. If you have a reusable coffee cup, you can go to most coffee places here and they will put your coffee in that reusable cup. So that's just one behavior you can do to try to limit your pollution that you put out.
Oh, yeah.
Reusing food items as well. Sorry, I'm a book of these in uni. I was a hat queen. Tea bags. So your tea bags that you use, green tea, stuff like that, especially quality tea bags, if you put them in a container and put them in the fridge after, they are excellent to place on your eyes for bags and smoothing out dark circles. And that also works very well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, I could use some of that. Wow. So, yeah, and that's the thing.
That saves on buying creams and stuff like that, because these things are natural products that actually work really well. We rush to buy all these creams, and yeah, they may contain aloe, but then they contain 15 other harsh chemicals as well. Yeah. When these raw sources of the produce actually does the job even better. It's even more nutrient packed.
Oh, and people are trying to trend back to these natural things, but they're right there. We're not aware of them.
I just did it because I was broke.
It's the power of marketing. That's what it is. The capitalism wants us to keep buying, so they market everything as a throwaway. But we don't have to be like that. I think for example, when we don't have these things, like for example during Hurricane Ivan, I remember people all of a sudden reusing and becoming extremely conservative at the time, and it wasn't so hard to come back in. I remember taking bucket baths.
Yeah,
that was fun. That was actually fun.
I personally wouldn't say it's fun, but at least you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you realize you don't really need to use that much water.
That is the truth. Yeah,
that came with me. You can put everything in a bucket, and the whole challenge was to try and take a bath without having to use the whole bucket. Yep. So that means you can take the whole bucket and dump it on yourself at the end. That was fun. That was a fun part for me.
Slightly cooler water when you're showering as well. Yeah. Try using that. It won't kill you. I'm a hot shower girly, but I realize using slightly cooler shower temperatures won't kill me. And honestly, after a long day's work, it's quite refreshing.
Yeah. Oh. So yeah, there's lots of things you can do at home, and you guys came up with a whole bunch of things, and I'm sure you listeners out there, you can probably come up with a few of your own. Conservation doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to wait until the National Trust or the Tiller Center or Department of Environment or somebody comes in and does it for you. You can do your own and make your own contribution. That was good, but we want to keep talking on this trend, but we need to take a quick break. So we're here on the Green Scene, brought to you by the Cayman Turtle Conservation Education Center. We're talking about conservation and environment. It's everybody's business. We're going to take a commercial break right now, and stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Shelby the Turtle here at the Cayman Turtle Center. Did you know that turtles breathe air just like people, but we can hold our breath a lot longer than our human friends, between 4 and 7 hours underwater? Come and visit me. I'm the largest turtle at the center, weighing in at 585 pounds.
Visit the Cayman Turtle Center and explore Shelby and her friends.
Green sea turtle nesting season's approaching. Here's a few tips to keeping our friends safe. Turn off, redirect, or shield any lights that can be seen from the beach. Remove obstacles and litter from the beach. No bonfires on the beach, and remain quiet and distant if you see a nesting turtle. This message from the Cayman Turtle Center.
Looking for something fun and different to do with the family? Join us at the Cayman Turtle Center for Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., enjoy a poolside barbecue, buckets of beer and daiquiri specials, and a live DJ. It's Grill and Chill Saturdays at Cayman Turtle Center.
Good morning and welcome back to the Green Scene. I'm Gillis Hislop from the Cayman Turtle Conservation Education Center. I'm here with my colleagues Shauna McGill and Wendy Dandy. And if you're just tuning in, we are talking about the environment and conservation. That is everybody's business. In the first two episodes, we were talking about how conservation is everybody's business, and does not need to be a big deal. There are lots of little things that you can do to protect our environment, to do conservation at home. It doesn't have to cost a lot. But we're continuing that because doing things at home is one thing, because as adults, or we can think about things that we can do, we can build that, we can discipline ourselves, at least hope we can. But as somebody pointed out earlier, change is hard, especially even for adults. But the thing is, what are we doing all this for? Because as adults, we're not going to be here forever, but we have a legacy to leave. And it's important now to foster that sense of environmental responsibility in our children. And there's lots of activities that you can do with children. Teach them conservation in a fun way. As the education programs officers, you guys do that a lot, right?
We definitely do that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go. What's some of the things you can? Well, one of the things that I wanted to start off was suggesting was, especially for kids that are living in places where you probably do not have a big garden, there's something called a butterfly square. And a butterfly square is just basically, you get some leftover pieces of wood, you make a square about 18 by 18 inches, put it down on a piece of ground somewhere, put some dirt, soil in it, in the middle of that square, and you plant some wildflowers. You know, just things that you see growing on the side of the road where butterflies, you see butterflies hanging on. And you make your own tiny butterfly garden within that square. You know, if you do that together with your child, and they see butterflies actually go into those flowers, that's a big thing, because it's work and pretty simple, because you can put the square anywhere, so it's out of the way.
Yeah. Another thing you can do is just simply start planting a garden in your backyard if you have the space. We understand that some people might not have the space. Maybe you rent, maybe you're not able to plant. But if you are, there are some very easy plants that you can use. Wendy pointed out bell peppers a little while ago that are very easy to grow here.
For the kids, two bell peppers is one. I was speaking about that earlier. It has a quick turnover time, so it'll be good for keeping your kids' attention. When I say turnover time, fruiting time before it bears fruit. So you get them excited, go out there, water their plant every day. They'll see it start sprouting, they'll see the flower, and then it eventually getting bigger, so that'll excite them. And I'm not sure what the primary schools do anymore, but back when I was in primary school, in the early 90s, they all planted kidney beans. So that's a really easy one, like in a plastic cup or a clear container, a glass jar. And that's a really easy one that will get kids excited as well, because they're also a fast turnover. And you can actually see their roots sprouting down into the soil, and they bud quite quick and come up through the soil. So that gets kids excited, and they sprout quite highly, quite quickly. So these are two good plants, I think, that are good to get kids interested, and they won't get bored of just watering a plant that's not growing every day. And they'll realize photosynthesis and about the sun's importance and water's importance and nutrients in the soil. So
a full scientific lesson in your backyard.
Yeah. If you don't have a garden space, nothing you can't do in a mason jar real quick for a fun little project.
That's true.
Mason jar or a little pot.
A little plant pot, yeah.
And other activities. A lot of the thing is, again, I'll go back, as I said in the earlier section, in the good old days, a lot of these activities were environmentally responsible, or at least keeping in contact with the environment. Simple things like going fishing, which is a great Caymanian pastime. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to have a big rod and reel set up out in a boat, all that kind of stuff. Just get a hand line, get some bait.
So I did it.
Go it out there, throw it out there. The whole idea behind fishing is to have fun.
But collect your don't leave any lines out there. People of Cayman, pick up those hand lines. That's a big issue as well. So do that with caution, please.
That's true.
But yeah, hand lines are perfect. That's what my dad did with me every weekend. I think I mentioned that last episode. We used to go out by what is Caibo now. Before, it just used to be a bunch of docks and a lovely abandoned beach. And he used to take me fishing every weekend, which led me into an environmental career.
Yeah. You never know the influence and the thing of having your kids, while you're having that bonding time.
Yeah, another great thing to do is to just get out there and go into the environment with your kids. Like you said, it's a good bonding moment. But also, while they're out there, they'll learn about the environment. They'll see all the things going on, and they'll care more about it. And I know a lot of parents here, I'm not a parent, sorry. They take their kids to the beach. So one of the greatest things you can do is just take something with you to collect any trash that you might see at the beach. Do a little mini beach cleanup with your kids, make it a fun activity, and then go enjoy the water afterwards.
Oh yeah, you could probably adopt that little section of beach that you go to if you go to it regularly.
Yeah.
And that falls into that pick up 3 pieces of plastic a day.
And also another little lecture again, what you bring out there, take back with you. Leave nothing but footprints, literal footprints, not carbon footprints.
Oh, definitely. And for those of you that might not be into fishing, there's stuff you can do on land. I think somebody mentioned earlier, well, during the break we were talking and somebody mentioned you can do like a treasure hunt or something.
Yeah, a little nature scavenger hunt. So if you have a computer, you might not. You can make a little scavenger hunt for your kids while you go on a nature walk. Maybe make it an activity if you go to the botanic park. Research what plants they might have there, what animals you could see, and make your kids a little scavenger hunt of, say, like a blue iguana, a ching-ching, a mockingbird, a banana orchid, things like that. And every time they see one, they can cross it off. So not only are they getting involved in nature, they're having fun while they're doing it as well.
Yeah, and if you fill out the whole thing, you get a ice cream.
Yeah, maybe you can get a little treat or
Screen
something.
time.
Yeah, screen time.
Yeah.
Also, back to more hands-on arts and crafts projects, arts and craft projects. So bird feeders and butterfly feeders on Pinterest and YouTube. There are thousands of different level of easiness to make these. Also, there's different foods where you can put out for gettists, for example. I've watched you do this quite a few times, putting out orange slices for banana quits to come and eat. So if you have a nice shaded tree in the yard, you can just make a little makeshift hanger and put some orange slices and then watch the birds come up to drink from that nectar or drink that juice out of the orange. Bat houses, things like that encourage nature to come along.
Oh, yeah. Well, certainly enjoy nature in your own yard. Yeah, that's true. You can create bird feeders and even bird baths or bird
baths as well. Oh, they flock to that. I have a friend, Sean. He has a bird bath now in his yard, a little handmade one. And every day he's watching out through his window, watching birds have the time of their lives there. And he just refills it with his hose every couple of days.
And it's really easy to enjoy nature like that and get connected. And reusing items, teaching them to not to throw away, as we were talking about earlier. Like for example, making kites. I did that with my kids. Taught them how to make paper kites, and we just use newspaper. We use old Christmas paper, stuff that you normally throw away. Even just the sheets of regular paper that you use in your photocopier. Take that and make little paper kites, fly them, make little paper animals. Things like that. Decorate their room, color the paper and decorate their room.
Yeah. Christmas decorations.
Yeah, as they became teenagers, that didn't fly anymore. But it was fun. They remember that. Being environmentally responsible and having fun with your kids is again another thing that doesn't need to be a big deal. There's lots of little things like that you can do.
Yeah, you can make them very fun and interactive for your kids. So Climate Kids NASA has little seed balls, an activity that you can make with your kids. I know seed balls. So that's when you use mud and clay and you put native seeds. Please use native seeds or seeds that can grow here. Or if you're doing it in your yard, in a ground, you can choose whatever you want. But if you are doing it in the wild, please use native seeds. But that's a fun little activity when you can get messy and muddy and make little balls and you just throw them and have fun. And hopefully the seeds sprout out and help the environment. But one of my favorite activities that I've personally seen was at Zoo Tampa. So I went to their manatee habitat and they were teaching people about the red tide, which very much affects manatees in Florida. But it helped me brainstorm an idea for sea turtles. Marine plastics are very much negatively impacting sea turtles and a lot of other marine species. So what they did was they took pasta and they dyed pasta. So they split it into two parts. They dyed one group green, they dyed the other group red, let them dry out in the sun, and then they had a big bowl. And then the kids had little silicone gloves. And they had to go into this bowl where the red and green pieces of pasta were mixed. And they had to try to pull out only the green pieces. Now, obviously, you can't do that with silicone gloves because you're a bit like a crab. It's very hard to grip and grab. But that was the whole point of the activity. It showed that as manatees were grazing, they were picking up this red tide and getting sick. And for sea turtles, that can show how when they're grazing on algae and seagrass, they pick up plastics. So just these fun little interactive activities with your kids that build bond, your kids can have fun, whether they're successful or they're not in picking up these pieces, can help foster that conservation in them.
Mm-hmm. Understanding.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. Yeah. I'm sure people can, like when you said you can go on YouTube or Pinterest and find lots of activities that we can do with our kids. We have the Easter vacation time coming up, in April, whole long 2 weeks, I think it is, for some schools. And yeah, that's a great time to do stuff with kids. And a lot of people go camping, and why not take the opportunity then?
Yeah.
And it will be Earth Month. It'll be a great time to implement those kinds of things. Wow. So these are all bonding things that we were talking about that you can do with your kids while you're doing recycling and we have recycling. Forgot to mention that. All these things you can do it at home with your kids. It doesn't have to be something really complex, and the benefits are great because you get to spend time with them, and you're actually doing things together, and they're learning and appreciating at the same time.
Yeah, I remember being a kid and going out into nature and making things like mud pies and getting absolutely filthy and rescuing tadpoles from muddy pools that would go and dry up. Nowadays, technology has advanced quite a bit, so we do use our screens quite a lot. So these activities are perfect opportunities to reduce screen time in your kids, but also for us as adults too. It helps us reconnect and get back into nature as well.
Yeah, that was funny. That was pretty fun. That gets me excited. Think about doing all that stuff. So yeah, so listeners, we're here at the Turtle Center. We're advocating that the environment is everybody's business. It doesn't have to be a big deal. There's lots of things that you can do on your own. Big thing, not necessarily big things, but the benefits are a lot. Not just benefiting the environment, benefiting yourself. So doing conservation activities with your kids can even benefit the time that you have, get you to spend more time together.
And decrease stress and improve mental health as well.
Yeah, all of that. So wow. Well, we just covered a lot, pretty much. So we're gonna give you guys a break now as we wind up this section. So we're here on the Green Scene. We're talking about the environment and conservation, everybody's business. We're going to take another break, and we'll be right back here on Bobo 89.1 FM.
Shelby the Turtle here at the Cayman Turtle Center. Did you know that turtles breathe air just like people, but we can hold our breath a lot longer than our human friends, between 4 and 7 hours underwater? Come and visit me. I'm the largest turtle at the center, weighing in at 585 pounds.
Visit the Cayman Turtle Center and explore Shelby and her friends.
Green sea turtle nesting season's approaching. Here's a few tips to keeping our friends safe. Turn off, redirect, or shield any lights that can be seen from the beach. Remove obstacles and litter from the beach. No bonfires on the beach, and remain quiet and distant if you see a nesting turtle. This message from the Cayman Turtle Center.
Looking for something fun and different to do with the family? Join us at the Cayman Turtle Center for Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Enjoy a poolside barbecue, buckets of beer and daiquiri specials, and a live DJ. It's Grill and Chill Saturdays at Cayman Turtle Center.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Green Scene. My name is Geddes Hislop, together with Wendy Dandy and Shauna McGill. We're all from the Cayman Turtle Conservation Education Center, and we are discussing the environment and conservation. This is everybody's business. If you missed it earlier, we were talking about the environment, and conservation doesn't have to be a big deal. There are a lot of really competent organizations in Cayman concerned with conservation, but you don't have to wait for them to take action. You can do it on your own. Conserving the environment and the environment itself is so beneficial to us. I'm going to quote from one of my environmental heroes, Dr. Eric Sala from the National Geographic Society, and he says the natural world is our life support system. More than half the global GDP depends on it. And if you think about Cayman, that very much applies. Our marine ecosystem, more than about half of our GDP here in Cayman depends on it. Because majority of our tourism is based on our marine environment. Stingray City, diving, snorkeling, fishing, just boating. And he also says that investing in an environment is actually much more beneficial than you think. In Europe, for example, for every €1 spent into nature restoration, it produces 3 to 8 euros in economic value, thanks to the services that it support, right? Because the environment pays back to us. It gives us, you have a lot of benefits that gain from the environment. And I think that when we think about spending money on, doing things properly, benefit the environment, we have to think of it as an expense. It's more like an investment. Because there's this thing called ecosystem services, or environmental services. I think Wendy was talking about that, or mentioned it at some point.
Yeah, so ecosystem services, as you said, with Dr. Eric Sala, is really important. People don't think about what the environment means to us on a monetary level. So ecosystem services, basically the explanation for that, or the definition of that, is it's the direct and indirect contributions ecosystems provide for human well-being and the quality of life. And it's also known as natural capital. So there are 4 major categories that the benefits of nature fall under. And those 4 categories would be regulating, supporting, cultural, and provisioning. So I'll give you an example of each. So first, regulating. Under regulating, things like clean air, carbon storage, flood management, erosion control, water purification, and pollination, things like that fall under that. So the price for erosion control, for example, the importance of mangroves. We saw earlier this week, we had a crazy nor'wester.
Yeah.
And the amount of damage and insurance damage that has done, right? That has a big value. If we had more mangroves here as a waterfront buffer, that's an invaluable amount, or you can quantify how much money that saves the island in damage protection, right? That's an example. For provisioning would be food and drink, natural medicines, water supply, materials. Those can be quantified as well. Water, food, medicines from the Amazon, all of these things come back to making capital, and you can put a price on. For supporting is nutrient cycling, photosynthesis, healthy soils, space for wildlife. These things help promote pollination, making honey, orchids, growing plants, animals, nutrient cycling, carbon sinks, as we talked about before, better human welfare. And lastly, cultural, so like recreation, tourism. That explains itself.
Yeah.
Natural features, natural parks, our beaches. You can put a price on that because of the tourism that it brings people in to come and see. So ecosystem services, you can put a price on how important conserving nature is. It is important in many different aspects.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing because a lot of, decision makers probably don't think of it that way. Because, as you said earlier, most people tend to think of the environment as something over there while we're over here. But that thing over there is providing a lot for us. And it's great that you're able to break it down in terms of dollars and cents, because I think some people can relate to that better. So the environment actually provides for us, helps us to basically survive and maintain our lifestyle and way of life. And not only that, but it also protects us. Because another thing that one of the most existential crises we have going on now is climate change. And Dr. Sala says, I quote, "We cannot solve climate change without nature. Reduction of carbon emissions is essential. Only healthy ecosystems can absorb the excess carbon pollution in the atmosphere and the sea." I think a bit earlier we were talking, Shauna, about mangroves. I think we mentioned it. Wendy mentioned mangroves and their protection of the coastline. But mangroves, for example, are give us much more than that in terms of ecosystem services too, I guess.
Yeah, so us in Cayman, I'd say we sort of see the climate change issue under a microscope. We're three tiny little islands, but I'm going to focus on Grand for this one. We're tiny little islands in the Caribbean, so we're already in a hot climate area. We're feeling that heat increase come in summertime. It is very hot. It's affecting a lot of things. But we're also low-lying. And a lot of people tend to forget we do have hurricane seasons, but what hurricane seasons need to form these hurricanes is that warm weather. So as we're getting warmer, we are basically feeding these storms, and we're going to start seeing a lot more storms. We're going to see very strong storms just because they have the heat capacity to build. And things like mangroves especially are essential to protect us here in Grand Cayman because we are low-lying. Those mangrove habitats help solidify our ocean floors and protect us from storm surges during these hurricanes, tropical depressions, tropical storms. But not only that, they do act as carbon sinks. So the ocean as a whole is a massive carbon sink. But also mangroves will take in the CO2. But below their roots as well, they hold the carbon molecules. and hold it in our planet so it doesn't escape and go into our atmosphere and add to this carbon issue we have going on that is affecting climate change.
Yeah, so and that's just one ecosystem we're talking about.
Right, and that in turn affects things like insurance rates going up because of more frequent storms and all of these things. So preserving nature does come back to affecting our pockets completely.
And taking the CO2 as
with
the
more
ocean,
wildfires, all of these
all
things.
of that, they also release oxygen for us to breathe. So they're taking CO2 from the environment, which is negatively impacting us and the environment as a whole. But they're also releasing oxygen to allow us and all the other animals to breathe. 50% of the oxygen we breathe comes from our oceans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and the rest comes from the forests. And if the forests are getting smaller, that's not a good balance.
No.
Literally by the day.
Yeah, so the oceans are super important, but so is the land. And Cayman is such a green island. That's what gets people here. I think I can't remember where it was, but I was attending a lecture here that ties tourism and environment and our financial services together. But people come here because of tourism. They enjoy the place so much that they want to invest in it, and they invest in it because it's a beautiful island. At the Turtle Center, how many people we meet that say this island is so beautiful? They don't say these buildings look really great. This beach, they talk about how beautiful the beach is, how green it is, and that's what attracts people in. And then they invest in the island, and then the financial services benefit because all these operators and people that invest in the island, they come here because the island looks beautiful and green. And so a natural environment does that. So ecosystem services, that's a new word.
And on top of that, not only are they important to protecting us, not only are they important to the financial services of the island, but me personally, I'm a very huge advocate for mental health. The environment, land and sea, are very important to us, especially post-COVID. It was really rough for a lot of us. And going out there and experiencing the environment can reduce stress and improve our mental health and health as a whole. Like, think of going on nature walks. Some people might have heard the term mental health walks. People go to clear their mind, get involved in nature, go out. I personally love diving. My sinuses are starting to affect that a bit more, but during diving, I find it so peaceful because you hear the sound of the ocean and it's really relaxing, and you can look around and explore, and there's open space and sand, and it does really reduce my stress personally. So on top of that, you have the ocean positively affecting your health too.
Absolutely, Shauna. It's been proven that being around large bodies of water does almost instantly help lower your blood pressure.
Oh, that's so true. I guess that's why the tourists like to come here.
We are surrounded by a lot of water.
Surrounded by water, and nice looking water too. I guess sometimes we take it for granted. And again, development is we have lots of threats to the environment besides climate change and so on. Those external threats, but internal threats, we have a lot of development going on here in Cayman. I mean, that's a whole issue by itself. But the point is, it doesn't have environment and development does not have to be a conflict, not necessarily. We mentioned earlier, when you're clearing land, leave some of the trees behind. Some of those big trees, instead of having to landscape it, leave those big trees behind. They're already there. They've been established there for quite a number of years. They're low maintenance. They provide shade. Just design around them. And
leave the silver thatches while you're at it too. I love to see them. There's so many wild silver thatch groves, and I don't know why people end up tearing them down.
Yeah, and that's our national tree. There should be something about that.
Well, not only that, it provides a lot of food to local species, things like our white crowned pigeons and our Cayman parrots too.
The berries.
Like, they love silver thatch berries.
And who does not like nature in their yard?
I personally love hearing the parrots. They might be a little loud sometimes. I mean, I'm used to them at work. But I love hearing them in the early morning and late afternoon.
Yeah. Those very same sounds of nature, as well as the visual effects, all those are what help feed our soul and help reduce stress. But as I said, and again, I go back to Dr. Sala. He said there's a myth that nature conservation will cost jobs, but the actual enemy of jobs is continued overexploitation of the very resources that support our livelihood. And as we were pointing out, nature does support our livelihood, directly and indirectly. So working together with nature and trying to do things in a sustainable way, that is conservation, benefits us so much in the long run. And it does not have to conflict with our jobs. It's as simple as leaving a couple of trees when you're building a new place. Planting native trees if you're going to use them for landscaping. If you're building close to the coastline, follow the restrictions. Just set back from there. We've seen the effects of that. We've seen the effects of that so much. Doing it the wrong way and not listening to people. If people want to live right on the beach, well, there's a cost that comes to that. Wow, we covered a lot in this episode, and we hope that you guys listening out there, you can appreciate what nature is and what conservation is, and that you don't have to be a big superhero to do it. You can start right there at home. You can involve your kids. You can support the different organizations that do conservation, that work in conservation here in the Cayman Islands. It could be as simple as donating or volunteering, or even attending some of the events. Like at the Turtle Center, we encourage people to come and visit. And all the income it gets there all goes towards our conservation. So we're going to wrap it up here, guys. Thank you so much for listening on The Green Scene. And as we're wrapping up, we just want to let you know what's coming up here at the Cayman Turtle Center this week. So from Monday to Friday, every day at 10:30, we have our shark talks. We have a number of animal talks going on at the Turtle Center, but the shark talks are a regular feature from 10:30 to 11, Mondays to Friday, right in front of the predator viewing window, or what people call the shark tank. At 11 o'clock, we actually feed the sharks and the other fish in the exhibit. So you can join up on the bridge and you can watch them hand feed the sharks right there, as well as feed the barracudas, the tarpons, all the other fish in that exhibit. It's a nice big show, and you gotta get there in time. It gets pretty crowded really quick. For those of you that are not swimming, you can meet us in the aviary. The Caribbean Aviary is one of the little hidden gems, our little Garden of Eden there at the Turtle Center. And for a small donation of $1 or so, you can get to hand feed some of the birds. And I know that's such a big hit with the kids. So many people tell us that they come there specifically to feed the birds. For locals, there's lots of stuff going on there at the Turtle Center. Grill and Chill Saturdays. Every Saturday from 11 to 4, you can dive into a poolside barbecue with a live DJ, soak up some sun, treat yourself to our daiquiri and beer bucket specials. So all you do is just pay the general admission to access the pool, and you can relish the DJ tunes and savor delicious barbecue delights. It's a perfect weekend getaway. If you're going to be visiting us on a regular basis, why not get yourself an annual pass? It just makes a lot of sense. Buy an annual pass, you can get it for a family as well, and you can pop into the center anytime you want. You can jump in, take a dip in the pool, jump out, and you've already paid for it. You can enjoy our Grill and Chill Saturdays. Just pop in, get some barbecue, pop out. So for more information on these and other things happening at the Cayman Turtle Center, visit our website at www.turtle.ky, or you can visit our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram. You can also contact us via email at info, that's INFO, @turtle.ky, if you have any questions or comments on the show. So if you would like to hear today's episode, and if you did miss today's episode and you'd like to hear it again, or any other The Green Scene episodes you may have missed, you can find them on our Cayman Turtle Center YouTube channel. Okay, thanks for joining us today, guys. See you next time, next week Saturday, right here on The Green Scene on Bobo 89.1 FM. And just remember, you can help our sea turtles and Cayman environment by picking up 3 pieces of plastic every day. See you next time.